Welcome to Peter Jackson's Level Up Chips, the official game of the movie. Hey y'all, welcome back to Level Up Chips, the weekly gaming podcast from CM Life that talks about everything game related. That's right, folks, when we say everything, we mean everything. Those roller coaster tycoon games you played as a kid are not safe from discussion. I'm Mike Gonzalez, and I have with me rotating co-hosts Max Logan and Brennan Valentine. How's everybody doing?
I guess I'm just doing fine. I'm back home to get my second dose of the COVID vaccine later this week, so I'm just going.
Awesome. How about you, Brennan?
Well, it is that time of the semester, but with the weather being nice and everything, I'm optimistic that I'll be able to get everything done. Projects and everything are coming up, but there's still stuff to look forward to. And I'm also getting my second dose of the vaccine this week. So, twins.
Oh, awesome. For me, I already got my first dose. I got the Johnson & Johnson, and kind of a weird story about that. It's kind of why I look a little bit beaten up at the moment. I got the Johnson & Johnson, and I passed out, and I broke my nose and cracked my head. So it's a little bit of a strange thing. I had a lot of rare circumstances, not eating. It was really hot, wearing a double mask. So honestly, I should have expected that, but things kind of got a little bad. But moving along from that, let's get into some of the video game stuff, some of the news. So I was meaning to put some stuff before about that roller coaster tycoon thing. Did you guys ever play those games as a kid?
Was the title specifically Roller Coaster Tycoon?
It's like those games that are almost like Sims, but you could like build roller coasters, maybe like a school or something. They had all sorts of those games.
I think when I was younger, I had it like on the computer. Like it was like the really unrefined version.
Yeah.
But I think I definitely had one.
Right.
What about you, Max?
Well, no, but I've always been interested in playing them, partially because I heard that you can intentionally sabotage the rides and kill the people on them. So
yeah, it is very much like Sims in that aspect. Then just put them in the pool and pull the ladder.
Yeah, you can just play God effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, yeah. I remember when I think I was in 5th grade. We had like a computer for like the whole classroom, and whenever there was like a break time or something, we could play that game, and we all took turns, and it was almost like the classroom fish, something like that, where we all had to take care of it. And sometimes people would put in like thousands of burger joints for this like school or something, a university, and we'd be like losing money like crazy. And I think someone figured out how to put like God mode in. They looked up how to do like certain cheat codes to get us like billions of dollars, stuff like that. That was always a lot of fun. Honestly, I like putting in some of those weird games that we just never really think about back then. But let's go into some of the gaming news just really quickly. There's not a lot going on. A lot of the stuff is starting to become rumors and delays. That's the biggest thing that is coming around, since 2021 is looking a little bit dry in the second half. We don't know what's coming along for all these different companies. And one of the biggest things that's coming around is that Hideo Kojima, the person who made Metal Gear Solid, is potentially working with Microsoft. They're not exactly sure on what, but it's pretty big since he's usually with Sony. All the Metal Gear Solid games were usually on PlayStation, and even his latest game, Death Stranding, was exclusive to PlayStation until recently. What are your thoughts on Hideo Kojima? Do you guys play any of his games?
No, go
Go for it,
ahead.
Max.
Go.
Alrighty. I haven't played a Metal Gear game in a while, like Metal Gear Solid in a while. I think, what was the one that was out? Let's see, 2009, 2010.
So that was Metal Gear Solid 4.
Metal Gear Solid 4. Yeah, sounds about right. I think I played that. That one didn't have. That wasn't Snake. That was the main character, right?
Oh, might have been either MGS2 or Metal Gear Rising you're talking about then.
hmm Yeah, because I know the one I played, I was like, oh, because like it was my cousin's game and he had it, so I like would play it at his house,
Mhm.
and I was like, because I was familiar with like Melee and Brawl, and I was like, oh, Snake, and then he's like, no, not Snake, so but that's
Oh,
it. But I like the game and I like the gameplay,
mhm.
and I'd like to see it like adapted to like a modern format because I haven't played a more modern Metal Gear game. So I'm interested to see specifically with Microsoft if there's going to be any like structural changes to the game.
Yeah.
I'm just really curious at the moment. Was the gameplay, was it stealth or was it more like sword combat?
I think it was more stealth.
Okay, that's Metal Gear Solid 2.
Metal Gear Solid 2. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So I know I played it around 2009, 2010, but
Right.
older game.
Right, of course. Personally, for my Kojima experience, I'm not very well versed in it. I played a little bit of Metal Gear Solid 1, which a lot of people still say is the best one. Um, Played a bit of Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, which is a platinum game that was made under supervision of Hideo Kojima. So it isn't directly one of his games, but a lot of the story beats come from his camp. Um, so yeah, that's my experience with that. But I have heard about Metal Gear Solid game on the PSP where you fight Monster Hunter monsters at one point, like a Rathalos and a Tigrex. It's weird. I've also heard like Banana Factory out of context. Like I don't know. It's,
I have so many questions about that.
yeah, it's called Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. If you want to go check it out.
Oh my gosh, I actually, yeah, that was the PSP game.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the 360, which we'll talk about later, but the 360, they had a remaster of Metal Gear Solid 2, 3, and Peace Walker.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I only got to 2 and then I realized I didn't like the gameplay. it's a weird type of format because I don't know how to explain it, but the way that you control the character with the stealth and like putting yourself up against the wall and shooting, it's kind of clunky. You really have to understand how it works, kind of the Resident Evil like tank mode,
Right.
where you really have to understand, okay, I can't just go left and right and that's it. I actually have to turn my character and move forward. It's that kind of like getting used to.
Right.
But I'm really excited to see what Kojima works on, just because I did play Death Stranding, which was relatively interesting. I think that it was a neat game, and I hope that maybe he gets a little bit more supervision
Yeah.
to keep his ideas on track.
Yeah, that's a thing that was kind of lost, in my opinion, with Death Stranding. He didn't have Death Stranding was his first project outside of Konami, with his own studio, Kojima Productions, and with that, he had no like he had no supervision from like business suits, so he's just kind of free to make whatever he wanted. And Death Stranding, it has its own merits, but it's a very love it or hate it type of game. So like, whenever somebody talks about playing Metal Gear Solid, they're like, "Oh, I really like it," because like there are actually like user friendly elements that keep people staying in there. So yeah, maybe this one will have some supervision from Microsoft. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's just like one of the rumors. Some of the other rumors that are coming around are a lot of remasters and a lot of remakes. To list off just a few of them, there's stuff like the Sonic Color game that came around. What was it, like
2010?
2010? Yeah, I think 2000, maybe 11. That might be remastered. The Fire Emblem Radiant games with Ike, the Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, they may be remade. I'm hoping that it'll be maybe in the Three Houses engine. Maybe they'll have a little bit more to use since they understand it a little bit more. They'll have like a Capcom is talking potentially about a Resident Evil 4 remake. I don't know how that's going to go. And GoldenEye just got their IP coming in, and people are wondering if the Wii version's going to get remade or if the original for N64 made by Rare might be remade.
I played the original N64 one. I was so bad at that game. No, because my older sister had the N64. My dad was a big like Bond person, so he bought the GoldenEye game and he would play that. And then I'd like, oh, I want to play it, and then I just like I can't aim because I was like 5, and I just get shot. And I was like, well, this isn't fun, and I'd go back to Super Mario 64. But I think I should go back and play it now. Next time I'm home, I'm gonna pop it into the N64.
All right,
Yeah.
fair warning, just really quickly. You may still not be able to shoot.
Oh, so it might not have just been the fact that I was 5?
Yeah, the controls like suck.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of people recommend that if you really want to get the full GoldenEye experience, you go get an emulator. You maybe go follow like a YouTube video, and they have a lot of different ways to emulate it and change the controls so it's a mouse and keyboard, type of that first person shooter like, and it makes the game just buttery smooth, especially since the N64, since it was all cartridge based, a lot of the game is laggy. Just cut frame rate really, really, really slow. If you get it on a PC, you're probably going to get like 60 frames, especially if it's really nice. So it'll just play exactly how you'll remember it. Maybe
Nice.
you'll be able to shoot.
I'll have to find the file because I've got the emulator on my computer. See, or the universal one that should be able to run most systems. So
perfect.
Don't talk about it.
Oh yeah, sorry, my bad.
Well, one of the remakes that is starting to get really controversial, I have been seeing it talked about all over Twitter, and it is making people furious at the moment, is a Last of Us remake. Yeah, that I'm not exactly happy about it either, personally. I don't know what you guys think, but this game came out in 2013 and it was on the PS3 and it's already been remastered for PS4.
And Last of Us Part 2 is less than 5 years old, correct?
Oh, yeah, it came out last year.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. Like, it feels like it came out like a little while ago because there was so much hype for it. But
Yeah.
like, it's still like it's not a dead game yet.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. And
But,
it just doesn't make sense to me because this game, a lot of people are saying, well, Shadow of the Colossus, that got remade, and you guys didn't get angry about that.
But like, that deserved a remake. Like, Demon Souls and Shadow of the Colossus, like, I'll be honest, back their original versions do not look, they do not hold up in the visual department. So having an upgrade for them, both made by Blue Point, which they did an excellent job on both remakes, is justified. But The Last of Us, it looks completely fine. Like, it hasn't aged at all. It's just like, oh, okay, it's The Last of Us 1. Like, whatever.
And I'm getting a little bit worried that, like, I don't know, are they going to use the same engine? Are they going to use the engine of The Last of Us Part 2 to remake it? And I don't know, change things up so it stays consistent, because in part 2 there were some certain people's clothes that were different in flashbacks of the first game, and it was a little bit inconsistent with what the original had and what the sequel had. There are a lot of different things that I don't understand. Are they going to make a whole new engine just for this game? It seems like a wasted opportunity. I bet I'll play it, but still, it's one of those things where I already got the first game. Why do I got to get it again?
Right.
Yeah, using the word remake is like, because like you said, there's already the remaster version. Remake implies that there's like going to be some new dimension of it that like the other game was completely lacking, that it's not even an improvement, it's just a change,
Right.
which doesn't seem necessary. Also, I know there's a Last of Us TV show in production with Pedro Pascal as Joel. So it's not like the property of The Last of Us is like not being used for something. There's actively something else, even if it's not a game, that's being worked on.
Right.
So why saturate the market with that?
Speaking of which, that show is actually supposed to be taking place in the first part of the game, which is supposed to be remade. So again, they are oversaturating that first part. They've stopped focusing on part 2 altogether. And now they're just like, all right, we hit gold that everybody liked with part 1. Let's just stick with that. And I want to see more stories in that world. I think that it's a really neat world. I think Naughty Dog had a great time. Part 2 is a little bit, I don't want to get into that territory because that's a big yikes. And
topic.
I don't want to say what if I liked it or not, but but I really think that there are so many different ways they could go about The Last of Us without treading on just some beaten paths.
Right. I feel like every once in a while Sony does this thing where they find a really successful franchise and then they milk it until it underperforms once, and then they put it down and just move on to the next thing. Like every franchise from the early Sony PlayStation game days, except for like God of War and Ratchet and Clank, have gone dormant just for that reason. So I feel like the same might happen to The Last of Us if they continue down this path.
And it's a shame.
Yep.
It's a real shame.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of like new IPs, some new stuff that's coming around, Deathloop. That's a game that is coming out for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, if I'm not mistaken. It's made by Arcane Studios, who's under the publishing house of Bethesda. They had to delay the game again. It was planned for like a December release, then it got delayed to May 21st, and now it's delayed to September 14th. That's the final date at the moment. I'm getting a little bit worried at the moment because I think the game looks really neat. I don't know if anybody knows the premises of the story, but pretty much I don't know about it either. It seems like a Groundhog's Day. Once you die, you have to restart and try to go through this whole, kill all these different assassins type of game. I don't know how that's gonna create a whole game because it sounds just like one mission and that's it.
Right.
But I just don't know what they're going to do. Is it going to be a roguelite? They haven't really described what the gameplay is going to be like. And the last time we've really had a game where they were not so upfront and they just kept delaying it over and over again was Cyberpunk 2077, which had all sorts of just
issues.
Yeah, there were a lot of problems with Cyberpunk 2077 where there were glitches, bugs, crashes, everything and anything and everything went wrong. And I don't want to see that with Arcane Studios. The last game that they made that was kind of big was Wolfenstein Young Blood, and that game, that took a nosedive right into the ground. That was bad, just like me. But
But
post-vaccine.
yeah, I mean, I feel like as long as they like discuss it at E3 or whatever, I mean, even with the PS5 reveal trailer way back in the days of September 2020, they, or was it like August? Point is, they showed a fair bit of gameplay and like they already had an idea set. So I think they might have just delayed it so that they can talk about it more at E3, since that just recently got announced as happening this year. So that's just my opinion.
So is Deathloop supposed to be like a big title, like the way like GameStop will like advertise like, oh, this game's coming out, line up at the door, like type stuff. Is Deathloop supposed to be one of those, or is this not one of Arcane's like something they're pushing really hard?
I think they're pushing it really hard. It's just
Mhm.
hard to push because it's a brand new IP. That's the biggest thing. Like with Dishonored, it seemed like that was kind of a sleeper hit, and then once it hit, that's when they started to really advertise it. With Prey, it was kind of that same just kind of sleeper type of advertising. For some reason, Arcane Studios has really gone under the radar when it comes to being like the huge hits. And it's gotten some of the spotlight, but again, people get so confused with what's really happening, what's actually going to be gameplay, that it just kind of gets swept under the rug, even when they're trying to just announce something huge.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I feel like kind of on the other thing, something happened a few weeks ago, still kind of happening. Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga got delayed again.
Oh yeah.
Which is what I got. I'm upset because I'm not upset because like it sounds like they just want to put more effort into the game. It looks like the most immersive, in-depth Lego game that like they've ever done. They're completely changing the formula. So I'm glad they're putting time and effort into it, but I'm also worried again about a Cyberpunk 2077. But like Lego game is definitely like up there. That's something that gets advertised around holidays. That's something like kids will get, adults will get. And they've released nothing, and the hype for it is still so insanely high that I feel like they're like, we don't want to disappoint people. We can't have any problems at launch. This needs to go right. I pre-ordered it back in like November, and every time it gets delayed, I'm like, alrighty, I guess I just have to wait longer. So I feel like those are kind of like opposite ends of the spectrum. Given like COVID and everything, I feel like there's different reasons for games being delayed, but I feel like these are not the same type of reasons of game being delayed, or at least not the same scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really funny thing, because it's been a long time since I've actually played a Lego Star Wars game. And it's funny because I saw the trailer for the Rise of the Skywalker Saga game, and I got excited again. And I hadn't heard about it, but as soon as you said the name, something in me just kind of lit up. It was like the Grinch, just like my heart grew three times sizes, and I was like, what? What about the game? What about the game? I think that you really talked about it. That's a huge game that everybody loves, even if they don't advertise about it.
Right.
Oh,
better bring back the grunting instead of the voices.
Oh no, it's the voices. But have you seen like the Lego Star Wars, like the stuff on Disney Plus? It's just a giant meme of Star Wars, like making fun of. It's like so meta, like jokes about this.
Yeah,
It seems like the game is gonna be that, and I'm so excited. Like you get really good gameplay, and then all the cutscenes are like, like, hey, it's campy Star Wars, not serious Star Wars. So I'm excited about that.
Just hoping they actually make the bad movies fun to play through instead of,
because they have the campy humor, it's definitely going to be funny.
They're going to make fun of Kylo Ren so hard. It's good. I like Kylo. Like I feel like they didn't treat him great, but I like the concept of the character. But if they're gonna make fun of Ben Swolo the whole time, I'm here for it.
I know they're gonna have the shirtless Kylo Ren. Oh my gosh, and they're gonna have probably like a cheat where you can just make everybody like big torsos.
I'd love that.
Oh my gosh, that would make my day right there. Oh my gosh. Uh, well, let's just move on really quickly into some of the meat of the show. We're gonna be talking about the 7th generation of video games, the consoles, which was between 2005 and I'm pretty sure like around 2013, maybe 14.
14 sounds
14.
right.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's around like I think 13. I think that's when it stepped off, all because of the Wii U. I think
And
that
also
kind of
the
marked that.
PS4 and the Xbox One had released.
Was it the same
Mhm.
year?
Yeah, and then in 2014 they started taping off the old generation.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Stop making
I'd say
ports.
2013 is when like the new engines started to develop. So
Correct.
I'd probably give you that.
Something like Unreal Engine 4,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, that generation between 2005 and 13 is a really big generation for a lot of us. I think because we grew up with it. Between the 360, the PS3, and the Wii, there are about 270 million units sold, which is just absolutely crazy, especially since the Wii sold over 100 million units.
Mhm.
Honestly, I forget how big the Wii is. Every now and then I think, oh yeah, it's not that big. And then I remember like everybody and your grandma got that Wii because it got you fit, it got you Just Dance.
Mhm.
um
It was just so weird. Like at the time, like everyone was like, "Oh no, you normally have like this, handheld controller. Like
Yeah.
wireless is an option." But then it's just like, "Nah, here's a stick." It's just like go for it. And then it was just so weird and so fun. But like just like you said, everyone and your grandma had one for Christmas. I think it was like 2007. I think my grandma got me, my like cut, and all of like the sets of cousins. Every household got a Wii. And then after she saw us playing them after Christmas, got one for herself. And so like yeah, Wii is big.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I remember back when it came out. It came out November 19th of 2006, and I remember getting it for Christmas, and my grandpa was here and we all played golf because he really liked golf. He like had the champion type of thing back at his home. And yeah, I remember he was just like, motion sucks because he couldn't get it like a hole in one or something like that. Oh my gosh, that was a fantastic time getting the Mii's together, just making the different this is me, that's me, and getting grandpa in there. It was a really funny time doing all that stuff. It was revolutionary to have avatars like that.
Right. Yeah.
Um honestly, that I would technically personally call it the renaissance of gaming, just because we got so many crazy awesome IPs that honestly to this day when we think about like
Video
games, we really think of things like Mass Effect, which Brendan at the moment, his background is from Mass Effect. I have the Omni Blade right here. There are other games like Bioshock, Dead Space, Borderlands, Assassin's Creed, even Minecraft was brand new during this generation. I mean, there are so many crazy, awesome IPs, and I know that they are still, prevalent to this day. They are still wild, they are still crazy fun. Max was just playing Borderlands 3. That's on the PS5 right now. Back when I was at his place, and you know these games really made something crazy. My favorite is just Mass Effect, and I know Brendan has like some.
Oh, I love Mass Effect. It's my Mass Effect 2 is probably my favorite game of all time. Um, However, fun story about when I played Mass Effect, I still was like not good at video games yet. Like when I first started playing the number one or the first one, so I didn't realize like, oh, you should actually look at the controls option. So I couldn't use biotics or like any of the powers until like the third boss, and then I figured that out on accident. So like it took me 4 months to get like three quarters of the way through the game, and then I beat like the last bit and then the rest of the games in like a month because I was playing them so much, but I just kept dying. But then I went back and replayed them because Mass Effect, if you haven't played it, is kind of like a choose your own adventure game. And you can make choices throughout that. And that's what I liked a lot about Mass Effect. And I feel like that kind of like represents this generation of games really well. Is like this was kind of like the generation of like choice. Like big franchises started, they started diversifying games. Because like in the previous generations, you had like your big titles, like I'm thinking like GameCube, you have like your Super Mario Sunshine, Smash, like games everyone has, and then you have some indie games that not everyone has, but there isn't like a huge variety. And then everything like with the new engines in this, and then with Wii being like a household thing, everything kind of exploded, if that
Right.
makes sense.
You know,
Yeah.
and I guess I've never thought about it. A lot of the games that really were a defining moment in this generation, they had a lot of choices. I'm thinking like the Telltale Walking Dead series, Mass
Yep.
Effect, Bioshock, even. A lot of those games really had that you choose what happens at the end.
hmm And
And
even if it wasn't story wise,
Mhm.
customization, it all like that's where it really started here. Like now, with the Xbox One and PlayStation 5, you can order custom controllers. You can like add like units. You can kind of take apart your PlayStation or Xbox. They don't want you to do that. And like add, you can change the hardware. But like this is where the idea of like we're not all playing the same game. We can kind of make ourselves unique. Started in consoles. Obviously, like with the internet, customization it helped with customization because you can have these big online platforms. But um, yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
no, Max, what would you have to say about the new IPs?
I mean, personally, I was I was raised with the Wii and the Wii exclusively, and then I ended up getting a PS3 later. Uh, the only ones I've really had experience with are Borderlands because I got into the second game on PS3, and played Bioshock Infinite first. That was a trip. Uh, I got around to playing the rest of the series later on PS4, but uh, yeah, my parents would highly regulate what I played back then. So like the most significant games I was playing was like Mario Galaxy on the Wii, which still my favorite Mario games, but that's beside the point. During this generation, I was mostly playing like Kung Fu Panda on the Wii, which is not the worst character action game I've played, if I'm being honest.
What's like the worst one?
It's honestly hard to say, but the one where
oh,
I've just kind of like felt the worst playing it was the Devil May Cry reboot, but we'll get to that later.
You were about to say something?
I've played the Kung Fu Panda game on Wii. If you want to ignore like the really technical stuff about it, it's fun to play.
Yeah, it is.
Like it's like not a bad game. I mean, it's
Right.
like yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
I think the only like character action game I really had was this Iron Man 2 game that one
Oh
of my
yeah.
friends brought along for my birthday, and I was like, thanks. They probably got it at the bargain bin, something like that. And I remember just it wasn't that great. I remember it was kind of like this third person shooter, but again, not a lot of thought into it.
Right.
So I remember getting to a certain point, I was like, you know what? I bet it's worth something at GameStop. So I just took it. I was like, all right, I'll get myself something a little better.
Right.
Um, but honestly, this game or this generation actually did help out with a lot of those characters that we really liked. Some of the comic book heroes. Iron Man 2 was kind of one of those games where it was starting to become, a norm for a lot of those movie games to be really bad, and a lot of those comic book, heroes to be kind of bad. But all of a sudden that changed with the Batman Arkham series, with Batman Arkham Asylum. That was the game that really, was able to create something of their own, a whole new universe of Batman that was able to really get that dark, tone to it, but really have some, just really kick-ass gameplay. I absolutely loved it. And I know Brendan has some thoughts.
Yes, I loved Arkham Asylum. I actually played Arkham City first because I didn't know it was a series. So I played Arkham City and was like, this is awesome. And then like I was like, there's another one. So I like immediately I beat Arkham City and I was like, I feel like I'm missing something. And then I went and played Arkham Asylum. But like you're 100% right. Like the generations before, the only other superhero game I think I played was like the Superman the animated series game on N64, where you defeat Lex Luthor by flying through rings in the sky. Like it's basically just like a point and click do task stuff. But then you get like Batman Arkham, and it has the most. I think it has influenced the combat system for like those types of games like ever since. Like it's not too complicated, but it's not too simple either with the way it works, and it evolved as the franchise evolved. But it's like really similar to how the PlayStation Spider-Man games work with combat. It kind of evolved into that, which is like a whole other generation of games. So the gameplay was awesome, the story was awesome, and it incorporated that outside source that already had an audience, and it kind of brought more people into video games, and then brought people from video games into that comic book realm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, if anything, I always felt like the cool thing about Spider-Man was that it had that feeling of like the Batman games where, it had that relatively same combat of attack, dodge, counter, stuff like that. But it was able to get its own twist where it almost seemed like with Batman, you're almost this tank that can just, beat the crap out of anybody. With Spider-Man, you could beat the crap out of people, but you had to be smart about it. They could easily take you down with a gun. And Batman's kind of the same way, but you had stealth that was really, really awesome in both games. But Batman really took that stealth takedown system and really it shined in that game. Being able to see the heart monitor whenever you looked at somebody, it was really, really neat. And especially later in the game, they had the heart monitors where if you did incapacitate someone, immediately everybody would be alerted. And it really created a lot of different almost predator prey type of moments that made it just so unique from any other game.
Arkham Asylum's like, because there was like two types of fights that weren't boss fights. Like you had the 8 to 10 guys that would come and just like, you're on the ground, they're on the ground, they're gonna hit you. Some of them might have guns, some of them might have shields. You have to figure out how to get around those. And then you had the stealth combat where they're all around in the room. Most of them probably have guns, and you have like the gargoyles up on the ceiling that you can swing around from. But eventually they wise up a little bit and they're like, he's at the ceiling, and you can't rely on those. And I love like having to like, because the first half of the game you rely on the gargoyles, you hang up there, no one ever looks up for some reason, even though that's where Batman is. You just look up. But then you have to figure out like your way around the room, and it's not just I'm gonna hang out here until you walk towards me. You have to go out of your way to find people, and actually like you felt like you were Batman. Like it was the whole strategy around it.
Really makes you feel like Batman. Yeah, honestly, that personally, I like Asylum the most because it had some of my favorite Batman villains in there. I know that a lot of people don't like Scarecrow levels, but I always thought that the intros to those levels were like some of the craziest stuff. Because later on in the game, I remember this part where, what was it? You're going down this hall and you don't realize you have like the serum in you and you're, about to get, fear in you, but pretty much the game just freezes. Like the console just bricked for a little bit and you're like, oh crap, what happened? And you're almost ready to turn it off. And then all of a sudden it goes black. And then you're going into the intro of the game again. And you're already like halfway through the game, maybe like 3/4 of the way in. And you're like, oh my gosh, it just sent me to the beginning. What's happening? And then all of a sudden you see Batman where Joker is. And it's all like really weird. Everything's really different. And I absolutely love this moment.
Same.
Yeah.
I 100% turned off my Xbox and turned it back on because I thought something broke the first time, and I was like, oh. Actually, I did the same thing in Mass Effect. In the second one, there's a mission. Uh, if you like complete a certain, like you do the same thing, and you complete a mission, and it looks like a failure, like you did something wrong. And I'm like, oh crap, I guess I'll go back and restart. And then I go, I change my stuff. I change the mission I did. I go do something else, and it still does the same thing. And I'm like, oh well, I guess this is inevitable. I lose. So
Yeah, no, I know exactly what that is. Honestly, again, this generation was just crazy awesome. It was able to get the IPs, the first person shooter IPs, back into its groove. Call of Duty, which was already, relatively big, it got huge with Modern Warfare, Black Ops. Those games were really big for that series, and now it's this conglomerate that you don't want to mess with. And then Far Cry got big. Fallout was not originally a first person shooter. Then Bethesda got a hold of it and made it, an actually like crazy awesome game. And Halo, which was already huge, just really hit its stride, hit its peak right in the 360 era. It was one of those games that you usually had your friends over with, and you had like controllers and you all played, split screen. You kind of tell people to not screen peek, hoping that they won't cheat and stuff. And I remember some people would get the snipers and just know exactly where you are. And you're like, I know you're cheating. I know something is happening. Those moments were great.
Yeah. I 100% miss split screen. I like same console co-op or local co-op.
Same here. And I'm happy to see like the Switch is starting to do that. But just recently, what was it? There's this new game that came out called It Takes Two. And basically it's that split screen co-op, and it's more of a platformer type game. Kind of a mix of like multiple genres. But I've heard that is like one of those games that you have to get if you have someone that you can play with just on the couch. It is just gorgeous, gameplay is awesome, and story is just awesome too. So I need to play it, but that's what I've heard at least. We've been talking about a lot of the great stuff about this generation, but I think one of the things that we should easily talk about is some of the disappointing factors, like the fact that this was the era of gimmicks, just a lot of weird gimmicks like motion control. That's a plus for the Wii, but everybody, all the main competitors, 360 and PS3, they saw and they're like, we can do it too. And
the Xbox Connect.
Why use a controller when you can use your body?
Why just play a video game when your Kinect can listen to you and you can shout commands, or someone claps and it thinks you did something wrong?
I have a camera right in front of your face all the time.
Oh, you mean 2019, or you mean 2020? Okay.
I digress.
Microsoft predicted the pandemic.
Oh no.
Confirmed. This is not clickbait. No. But yeah, that was a really weird thing, especially because I remember seeing like going over to Walgreens with the whole Wii Sports craze. I remember seeing those little plastic models of like, put your Wii remote in the golf putt or in the bowling ball, in the tennis racket. I remember specifically there was a bowling ball one where it was like, yeah, I know, right? Pretty much you put your Wii remote just in there.
In the ball.
And then you just kind of like close it in there. And I think like you put your fingers in, and there might have been like a hole where you could put like the B button, because you had to hold the B button and you just kind of had to let go. But again, I just see that as a huge issue because you didn't have the wrist strap or anything. That's a ball flying right at your TV. It's not as bad as it's just as bad as a Wii remote, but still.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge issue.
See, I liked the baseball bat and golf club. I don't know if I would have liked the bowling ball.
Nah. I remember always wanting them, and my parents were like, it's a waste of money, and I'm happy they never got those for me. Yeah, there are other gimmicks too. Do you guys remember the Guitar Hero Rock Band craze?
I mean, I still
Yes.
have some in my room at the moment.
I love Guitar Hero.
With
Oh
like
my god.
3 of those guitars.
I remember playing Hotel California all the time. That's how I got introduced to so many rock songs.
I feel that.
I think that's how I got into Green Day. Yeah. Oh, that was a crazy time, but I remember there were like tens of just the same game, just different songs, just maybe different songs, but again, it's the same formula, and it just got old so quickly after 5 years.
Well, that's one of the advantages of the newer games is like a game like that where it's like, oh, you just need new songs. You can update it online. Like hopefully it's not paid, which is one of the things I figured we might talk about
Yeah.
with the drawbacks of this generation was the start of paid DLC.
Yeah.
I guess one of the big things is that, Activision and EA were the ones who were competing on that front. And when it started to underperform, they both just abandoned it. And then, nothing's developed since with those types of games. So,
Yeah. The DLC was definitely a down, bad point in all that stuff. But I really have to say the biggest thing that I remember really not liking was the amount of edgy reboots that a lot of games got, or maybe like new games, new IPs that just got the same edgy look. I just remember looking at the three. Yeah, Max is rubbing his hands because he is just one of the biggest reboots that was hated upon was the Devil May Cry reboot, DMC, and Max has a lot of information about that one.
Okay, so effectively, back in that day, Capcom was really trying to push towards appealing to Western gamers as opposed to Eastern, where they had an established base. So they tried stuff like the Bionic Commando reboot, where the main character's wife was also his arm. Let's see, they were about to reboot Mega Man X into like this gritty first person shooter. That didn't go through, and the one that actually ended up being mildly successful was for Devil May Cry, and it has the original character Dante from the original series, who's like this goofball that eats pizza all the time and cracks jokes while he's killing demons into like this like really crass and just it's hard to explain. Like they
Edgy.
try to make him look as cool as possible, as hard as possible, but it's just so try hard. And the combat is simplified. And there's like some story elements that are really funny to say out of context. It's just
Yeah, a lot of the stuff is so edgy that honestly it's even hard to talk about on here because it is way too mature. It just really messed up stuff, and I remember being like, wow, this is just crazy that this generation just got into that edgy like stuff. And I will say the last generation was like that, but honestly it didn't get bad up until until this generation. But I will say the biggest thing that was a leg up for this generation that I really hope to see this current generation to kind of step up on is archiving video games, being able to get emulation that you can buy games, stuff like that, because at the moment the PlayStation Store is planning to be shut down by Sony. What was it, in June? And
PlayStation 3.
it's a really bad shame. It's a terrible shame because a lot of those PlayStation 1 games, those PS2 games, you now have to either buy it before the PlayStation Store, shuts down, or you have to get the physical games, or you emulate, which is illegal. But honestly, a lot of people do it, and there's no way to stop it. And that's a touchy subject. But going away from that, this generation, the Wii had its own eShop called the Wii Shop Channel. Everybody loves the music, and yeah, no, it's a slapper. It's great. And it had a lot of different generations of games just on there. It had a lot of Sega Genesis stuff. It had a lot of TurboGrafx, all the little niche games that you wouldn't think would be, archived are there. And that got shut down. The Xbox Arcade had Xbox games, and luckily the Series X is really awesome at emulating all sorts of games, 360, Xbox One, and even Xbox games. All the different generations are there. And that generation, the 7th generation, had a backwards compatibility for the most part, and it was fantastic. And I really hope that this generation is able to take a step up. I really want to get GameCube games back on the Switch, because at the moment there's only Mario Sunshine. That's the only GameCube game really out there that Nintendo has, and they've somehow emulated.
They were good about that, like through the DS era, but now that the portable and like consoles kind of converged with the Switch, they're like pockets of types of games that Nintendo's missing out on having access to,
which is a really sad shame, because like what we talked about in the news, that Fire Emblem Path of Radiance game that was on the GameCube, and potentially getting remade, that would be great, because at the moment, if you wanted to get a physical copy of the game, it is roughly about like $154, maybe $200 at this point, which is just absolutely insane to get a game that you really like. And I really hope that we really get back into it. And that's kind of like the end of what was that generation, but I really wanted to talk about the stuff that we personally liked. Like, what were your favorite games on each console that you owned in that generation?
I mean, personally, since I only really grew up with the Wii, I'd say it's probably be no, it's hard to say because I had a lot of good games I played on there. Like when I was a kid, it was probably Super Mario Galaxy 2. But nowadays it's probably Punch Out, because that game I could just play it all day and not get sick of it.
I totally.
When I ended up getting my PS3, I used to. That's the dishwasher upstairs, but when I used to play the PS3 with one of my good friends from back where I used to live, we would play Lost Planet 2 all the time. That's a fun game to couch co-op, so I think that's my favorite on the PS3, strangely.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about you, Brendan?
Let's see. So I'm an Xbox guy, so I don't have PlayStation. And it's not like Xbox exclusive or anything, but one of the games I anticipated the most that wasn't like a franchise yet. I love the Mass Effect trilogy, but I think I gotta go with my favorite one was the game Injustice: Gods Among Us. Very similar to Mortal Kombat, made by the same company, NetherRealm. But you replace, the typical Mortal Kombat characters with DC superheroes. And like the story was really cool. It was like a spin-off like world within the DC universe. But then you got to, settle the playground fights, like, oh, who would win? Batman versus Superman, Batman. But then you can like play these out in the game, like with your favorite heroes and villains, and then that sparked a sequel later on, and hopefully there'll be another one. But I really like that. And then on the Wii, let's see. What did I? Did anyone ever play Sonic and the Secret Rings on the Wii?
Oh boy. Yeah, I did. And
That's a throwback.
I could not beat it without
I
my
could not.
brother.
I couldn't figure out what the like. I liked the story mode and I liked the gameplay, but I could not figure out like how to play these missions so that I unlocked them all. So I played it for like the longest time, and I had a blast playing it. It also had couch co-op as well, like a party mode, and I felt like it was like a full balance of the type of game I wanted from a Wii game.
Yeah. No, exactly. It was one of those games that I remember a lot of my friends used to play. If they had a Wii, they usually had a Sonic game, and the only one that was there at the moment was Secret Rings. So that was actually one that I forgot about for the longest time, actually, just until you said it. But I guess for me, I think that I had all three consoles at a certain point. My brother owned the PS3, and then he sold it to get the PS4. And we only had the PS3 for maybe a month. But I think my favorite Wii game, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to say the Metroid Prime Trilogy. And I can cheat with this because they actually did have it in one case and one disc. So technically I had all the games just right there. And then my favorite 360 game was Bioshock. I absolutely love that one because I think that was my first time really getting into like kind of that action horror type of game. And ever since then, I've started to play Resident Evil, all those crazy fun games. I've started to get into Silent Hill. And it was one of those things where I was probably like maybe, I think I was in 5th grade at the time when I played it. And my brother was the one that was kind of scared of the whole Bioshock game. He couldn't play for the longest time. And I just breezed right through it. And, he's 6 years older than me. He's in high school. I'm just like, big deal. And then the last game for PS3 was The Last of Us. That was something that I love the story. I love the gameplay. There's always new things that I learn about the game every single time I play. So that's what I like. But honestly, that's a generation that I think that we can all really appreciate just because it gave us what we have right now. And honestly, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that generation. It really gave us something that we all really appreciated and we really refined, as a industry, I think. So I think that we should kind of put this into a close into the last little segment called game recommendation. Nothing too fancy, but pretty much we have a random picker, and it's totally random. We went with 7th generation theme games this week, and it was random, but I'll be completely honest. Brendan hadn't played a lot of the games that I had put on the list. And I had like Dishonored, and then I think I had Skyrim. I spun it again. I had Skyrim, and I'm like, all right, spin it one more time. Bioshock. Max and I have played it. We can talk about it.
Right.
Sadly, Brendan hasn't played that one either.
Nope, I'm a fake gamer. I haven't played. They're on my list of stuff to play. It's just like in college, it's hard to pick up new titles.
Right.
Especially like big stuff like Bioshock and Skyrim.
Yeah. Bioshock is surprisingly, I wouldn't say it's too big. It's a game.
But I feel like I get into Bioshock, I get into the first one, I gotta play like the whole series. And that's what I meant by big.
Oh, I get that. No, I
They have a collection out, so if you want to get that.
Oh yeah.
It's been
remastered for PS4 and Xbox One. You can play it on the newer gens. Yeah, remastered. It's not that big. Maybe a good frame rate upgrade, but resolution.
Just like how Mass Effect got, remastered. Or it's getting remastered.
It's getting remastered. I'm getting excited for it. I think Mass Effect 1 definitely got the biggest upgrade. It needed
And
it.
it needed it.
Hands
Yeah.
down. I tried playing it. It needed it.
Clunky.
Right.
Clunky.
Yeah, let's talk about Bioshock.
Sorry, yeah, I'm getting a little bit off topic, but Bioshock is a fantastic game. It was my favorite game for a while, but it is a really creepy and super fun shooter. Max, would you want to talk a little bit about like the story, just in case I spoil something?
All right. So as explained in the intro, which if you haven't played it, it's literally like 5 minutes in, or literally at the beginning of the game, you crash in the middle of the ocean, and you go to this underwater city called Rapture, which is pretty much just in complete chaos, for at the time unknown reasons, and it's led by a guy named Andrew Ryan who wanted to create like this perfect, completely like free capitalist society. So he created an underwater city called Rapture. Ended up falling apart again for undisclosed reasons, and now there are people going around hopped up on this stuff called Atom, which pretty much degrades your mind and your body. They're called splicers.
But
And
but those atoms can rewrite your genetic code and
Yeah.
create some really cool powers called plasmids.
yeah, like you can shoot fire, you can use telekinesis. My favorite, you can shoot bees at people. That's quite fun. You can also light the bees on fire so that they put people on fire when they swarm around them. It's very fun. Also very dark and in many ways very dark. So it's also kind of clunky because it's based off of an old game called System Shock, which didn't have mouse look, so that's something.
The first game is definitely a little bit clunkier because you basically have your left hand with plasmids, right hand with gun, and when you use your gun, your right hand is out. When you want to use plasmids, all of a sudden the gun's gone and your left hand's there.
Right. Yeah.
So you kind of have to switch left and right, and it's a little bit clunky in that sense.
Right. Yeah. And one little last bit about the story: you contact someone on the radio. He's all like, "Hey, I'm Atlas. You gotta find my family." So
You're gonna do the
gotta
accent.
go find
Okay.
and rescue his family. So
Yeah, that's about as much as you're given in the
Gonna
first
get
5
from me.
minutes. And it's really fun. I really like it because you get to use all the environmental stuff. If there's maybe like oil on the ground, you can use that fire, you can snap your fingers, and the fire will just trail along with that oil onto somebody, who's like right on top of it. Or let's say there are like with the electricity, you can just zap one person, but let's say they're all in a pool of water, like maybe 5 people. If you just zap the water, everybody gets shocked all at once. So you get to really use your environment to the best of your ability.
yeah.
Honestly, that was, just one of the greatest games for me because you had the weapon wheel. You didn't have to do the Call of Duty like 2 weapons at a time. The story is told through audio recordings, so you kind of have to figure out what happened in certain situations, certain settings. You might see 2 people holding hands, but they're both, skeletons at this point. You're like, okay, something happened.
Yeah.
You see the audio recording, you're like, okay, it's gonna tell me what happened.
Right.
So honestly, it's one of those games that you have to really seek out the story if you want to. Otherwise, you can just go with the base storyline and just kind of go along with it.
Right. Yeah.
And the iconic enemies, big daddies, little sisters, those play a big role. Never really truly explained why they kind of coincide with each other.
Yeah. I think they just have like this weird psychic link that's never explained too much.
Yeah, the little sister is basically like a little girl who is hopped up on Adam to the
And they
point
go on.
they're pretty much like immortal, but basically they have these huge guys, basically mutated, called Big Daddies, that are kind of like basically like iron golems in a sense, with
Like,
drills in their hands. They were meant to be just the mechanics of the place.
Yeah, just think like that one diver monster from Scooby-Doo. That's what they are.
Yep, that's exactly it. That's all you have to think about. But imagine him with a big gun.
Yeah, or a drill.
Or a big drill.
Yeah.
And you have to fight that to get to the little sisters. And, that's just one part of the story, but it'll help you get Adam so you can actually get those upgrades for the plasmids.
Yeah.
That's about as much as I have to say about the game, but I've always really liked it because it's the 60s, it has that
Art Deco style.
Yeah, it has that theme of the 60s that's really neat, but at the same time, it's this dystopian city that is changed up with all this new science, all this new technology that is still in that theme of the 60s. So,
right. Yeah.
It's one of those games that you have to play it. You either have to watch it or you have to play it to really understand how awesome it is. But that's about as much as I have for
y'all
this
inspired
episode.
me to go pick it up.
Perfect. No, that is exactly what I want to hear. Honestly, it's not that hard to find. It's really cheap, and if you even have a Switch, you could just play it right there on the go. So that's about as much as I have. Do you guys have anything else that you would want to say?
I don't think so.
No? All right.
Nope. Oh, one more thing. For all like 10 of us that have the PS5, tomorrow, which will be April 13th, because this episode will be released on a Friday, so it'll be a few days from that. A PS5 update will be releasing to allow your PS5 games to be moved to extended storage. So you won't have to deal with the 650 gigabytes they give you for your PS5.
And what day is this again?
April 14th, which would be tomorrow in our time.
Okay, 14th. Okay, awesome. Yeah. So that's something I'm going to have to keep an eye on. But really, thank you so much for joining us on our talk about the history and love of, I almost said arcades, but I meant to say 7th generation. That was last episode. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to follow up with Level Up Chips and CM Life on your preferred platform. We also want to plug in the partnered podcast, Raving Geeks. Brendan is a part of that. And honestly, we want you to join us next week as we talk about indie games and have an indie developer on the show. Until next time, see ya, everyone.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.